Hey guys,
Hey.
This is our
this is
fan
Zoe
club.
and
Soleil.
Yeah.
This is a section about the Roaring 20s,
which is insert Katy Perry song here.
we're gonna get copyrighted.
Oh, sorry.
Section 1, post-war America. The problems that America faced after the war was that the cost of living increased. There was a lot of economic problems which led to racial violence, we'll talk about later, the fear of communism, and there was a lot of financial losses that led to the Great Depression.
Why'd you say that in such a happy tone?
Because it was great.
The number of workers in labor unions increased, and U.S. soldiers and African Americans were looking for jobs after the war, post Great Migration.
General strike, a strike that involves workers in a certain location and not in a certain industry. There's a typo there.
Sorry.
Yeah.
And then the FBI was created to deal with the government secrets, specifically communism after the Red Scare, which was like we talked about last time. The Red Scare was the U.S. fearing of communism and stuff, and the radical organizations, and they were looking for evidence of communism.
Warren G. Harding, he was a Republican, and when he was elected, that was basically the end of progressivism.
That was the end of the progressivism.
Which is kind of sad, but
you know what?
it was bound to happen. It was inevitable.
Now it's time to go back.
Section 2, the return to normalcy was Harding's campaign. Ohio game. This was a term given to the people inside the Harding administration and who are in his cabinet.
Haha, this is a throwback to when hashtag Andrew Jackson hashtag appointed his friends, but that's hashtag illegal, so.
Okay, but also all of his friends were kind of really bad and annoying, and they caused a lot of scandals. For example, the Teapot Dome scandal.
When Harding's secretary allowed private oil companies to drill a public lands at a Navy oil reserve. So pretty much a bunch of oil companies were drilling on public land and
which was the Teapot Dome.
Yeah, which was the Teapot Dome. People were like, hey, don't do that. And the government was like, hey, yeah, I can, because, Harding's secretary wasn't the brightest. But that's the tea for today. Get it?
And then he died. Which was lolzers.
No, that's not a joke. And then we have the Coolidge takeover plus new stuff. So Coolidge's stance on business was that big business was that the country would be prosperous if businesses were prosperous, meaning that if businesses were growing and economically profiting, then countries would profit, which was not necessarily the case. But Robert LaFuente was a progressive candidate in the third party, and he ran in the presidential election of 1924.
In Section 3, a booming economy. The economy grew a lot during the 20s.
Yeah,
and this included an increase in overseas markets and a laissez-faire policy towards business by government, which was, we talked about this in a lot earlier videos, right?
No.
Yeah, we did.
No.
I swear to God, we did.
We
talked about it in the first one.
Right.
I'll find it. I'll watch the entire thing.
How much do you bet?
I'll bet. You do the PowerPoint for the research project.
Okay, that's fine.
There was also new innovations, which led to a rise in mass production.
Yeah. LOLzers.
Assembly line. Henry Ford, my man.
Henry Ford.
Also, there was a large scaling of mass productions that came about.
We put a lot of effort into the first video, but that's also because it took us 5 hours. Okay, so Henry. Henry is the man, the dude, the myth, the man, the legend. He was the automobile industry guy, not the automobile industry.
He was the automobile industry himself.
But pretty much the automobile industry saw the greatest impact of mass production in the 20s because automobiles changed the life of America, because it created increase in small businesses, it brought people to cities and allowed people to live further from work. Because could you imagine walking from your house to school? Could you? You probably can, but
the reason why it saw the greatest impact was because Henry Ford introduced the assembly line system.
Yeah,
in which is just how one person just does one thing and then the other person does the other step, which is
they can't see us.
I said the other step. Well, it's kind of self-explanatory. If you don't really know what it is,
look it up.
Okay, Mornis, did you do this?
Yeah. So pretty much the age of flight was triggered by the boom in the automobile industry. And then off topic, but the FFC regulated radio stations and networks as it increased radio frequencies, it established limits for stations, and it made sure that stations had appropriate programming.
There are divisions inside the advertisement corporations where sales, marketing, accounting, and operation. And as a result, the middle class expanded, which is pretty cool because that's a good thing. Capitalism versus farmers.
Okay, we'll start with the farmers. We're gonna go left to right today. I mean, right to left. I'm dumb. Anyways, so 3 factors that contributed to the farmers' problems during the 1920s were the fact that they were in debt.
Sorry. My tea is so strong.
In debt in an attempt to produce more food than European farmers that didn't do like anything during the war. They began to farm again. So they're like, hey, like, you know what, we're gonna farm again. And the farmers were like, no, you didn't farm during the war. And they're like, well, we're farming now. And anyways, a law passed that raising tariffs, and Europeans reacted by not buying agricultural products, which made prices lower and therefore hurt them. And then on to the capitalism side.
Welfare capitalism, when companies gave their employees numerous benefits, and these benefits included healthcare, retirement, pension, and opportunities to buy stock in the company. As corporation gave more benefits to the workers, the labor unions went away. Wow, what a shocker. I didn't know that could happen. Okay, section 4, the policies of prosperity. The laissez-faire theory was basically a philosophy where Harding and Coolidge both liked. Laissez-faire, as we talked about before, was where government was hands-off when it comes to like businesses and stuff.
And so then the treasury, Andrew Mellon, who was the treasury of state while Coolidge was president.
Really? The treasury, Andrew Mellon, was the treasury of state?
Yeah. He stimulated economic growth in the U.S. by reducing government spending. He cut the federal budget, which, like, you know, isn't probably good for the federal government, but it helped the people. So, you know, and he also refinanced national debt at lower interest rate to reduce debt. He persuaded Federal Reserve to lower interest rate for public, and he worked to reduce taxes. So that was that dude.
Was the Secretary of Commerce who who tried to balance the government regulation with the idea of cooperative individualism.
Which is the idea of being individual.
Post-war isolationism was very favored, and this was the policy where people wanted to like stay out of foreign affairs that didn't directly affect the country. The U.S. was already like super connected with all the countries economically, so this wasn't really a realistic thing that could happen. So
yeah.
Okay, the Dawes Plan. The plan for European countries to repay the debt, and this allowed for the American banks to loan Germany money, and France and Britain agreed to reduce the reparation payments that they forced Germany to pay.
And this put France, Britain, Germany even deeper in debt because like they thought it was going to work and it didn't work, and it made the U.S. unstable.
Propositions. At the Washington Convention, Charles Evan Hughes proposed that a 10-year moratorium.
That's like where the dead people are.
Oh, okay. A 10-year moratorium on the building new warships, a list of warships for each country to destroy, and a 5-power naval limitation treaty.
And so then the 4-point treaty, it had the U.S., Japan, France, and Britain recognize each of their Pacific islands, because as you remember in the Spanish-American War, a bunch of people were fighting over like islands and stuff. And anyways, all participating countries who took a part in the 9-powered, which was more countries, and these were like major like world leaders, and they all agreed that China was independent. Anyways, Kellogg-Briand Pact, a treaty made between many of the world's most powerful nations, as they agreed to
love cereal.
They agreed to abandon war to solve disputes, and they said they were going to always be peaceful. Because, you know, that happened, because, you know, like the World War II, you know.
Wow.
Just kidding. Wait. That's really offensive. I'm sorry. I'm just kidding.
Cut it out. Okay. Section 5, a resurgence of nativism. So apparently immigrants were taking jobs away from soldiers who were coming back from the war. They were coming in, and so were the soldiers, and also the African Americans were coming up, and so there was no jobs left for the soldiers. I don't know, but... And 2 immigrants that were heavily discriminated against were Nicola Sacco and Bartolomeo Vanzetti.
Bartolomeo Vanzetti.
Yeah, and they thought they were
Antarctica. They thought they were Antarctica. Anyway, eugenics.
Eugenics was a sort of pseudoscientific racism where, like, white people thought that the people who first came to America were like genetically superior, which wasn't true at all, because like.
And then the KKK spread a lot from the north and south during the 20s.
KKK. Okay, the KKK targeted black people, immigrants, Catholics, and Jewish people. A result of nativism like coming out again was the Emergency Quota Act, which was a temporary quota system where immigrant admission was based on a person's like ethnicity or cultural background.
Origin.
Yeah, and the National Origins Act was where America let North and West Europeans come into the countries, but they
didn't allow South and Eastern Europeans.
They didn't like necessarily not allow it, but they limited it. Yeah. Well, the new morality in the 20s really stressed youthfulism and personal freedom. So basically, young people got like super angsty, and so flappers, they came out and they were like really bad, and they like dressed bad, and they smoked, and they wore short skirts. So fundamentalism. This was a movement where it stressed the Bible's teachings.
They didn't believe in evolution, and they believed in creationism,
which is basically that God made the earth. And the Scopes trial was a trial where they persecuted a guy for teaching evolution. So prohibition, it was when people didn't want other people to drink or consume alcohol.
And then so pretty much they tried to limit the alcohol of people, but like obviously it didn't work. But
yeah, through the 18th Amendment.
And which made production, consumption, or sale of alcohol illegal. And then there was more acts that had to do with it to enforce
like the Volstead Act.
And pretty much prohibition was the thing.
Speakeasies were secret bars where people went to get like alcohol during, where prohibition was very like prominent, and bootlegger was a new type of criminal that got a lot of money from like illegally selling alcohol and producing it.
Yeah,
and Al Capone, he was like a really infamous gangster. And a lot of organized crime and gangsters came about from like this illegal alcohol selling stuff. Okay. Honorable mention: the 21st Amendment, and this repealed the 18th Amendment, which banned alcohol. So alcohol was legal again. Also, really cool gals were Florence Savin, Edith Wharton, Margaret Sanger, and Margaret Mead. Okay, Section 6, Lindbergh and the Lost Generations. Charles Lindbergh was a guy who like basically just flew across the Atlantic.
More progressive American modern age part of it, and then it restored people's beliefs in courageous pioneering individuals. And pretty much the Lost Generation, they were young literary modernists coming of age in the U.S. shortly after World War I, and they became disillusionized with life because of all the death that came about from the war.
And
here's to list a few.
Great Gatsby, and this was F. Scott Fitzgerald's book about how wealth can have a negative impact on a person.
Starring Leonardo DiCaprio.
Sexy. Okay. Babe Ruth, he was a New York Yankee baseball player, and he was like pretty cool
candy bar.
And famous.
And a candy bar.
Jack Dempsey, he was just like a boxing guy. Art in the 20s. People liked radio shows, movies, newspapers, and magazines a lot during this time, and classical music was like the most like trendy. And so the results of mass media were that it broke down the patterns of regionalism, it fostered a sense of unity, and it helped spread new ideas and attitudes of the time.
In the Harlem Renaissance.
This was the rebirth of African American art, literature, and music in the New York City, like neighborhood of
and 3 African American writers who became significant during that time were Claude McKay, Langston, Hughes, and Zara Neale Hurston, which you can read about there.
Yeah. Okay, jazz was first introduced through the Harlem Renaissance, and Louis Armstrong was a guy who like did that, and he was like a trumpet guy. And Duke Ellington, he was like another famous Harlem guy. Cotton Club, and this was the most famous Harlem nightclub. Bessie Smith, she sang the blues. Josephine Baker, she was very flamboyant, which made her an internationally known singer and dancer.
More Harlem stuff. The effects of the Harlem Renaissance brought more fame to black people, sparked political transformations in the U.S. African Americans moved to politics. And then the NAACP, as we talked about last time, was an African American organization that battled in the court system against segregation and discrimination. Black nationalism, which was the movement that called for black separation from whites. And then
also Marcus Garvey, he was a black leader that led the black nationalism movement.
And then this next one was an organization that...
Are we allowed to say that?
I don't want to. By Garvey, aimed at African American pride/unity, and Garvey's central message was that African Americans could gain economic/political power by educating themselves.
And
happy birthday! Wait, whose birthday is it?
I have no idea, but it's someone's birthday.
Remember, like, comment, and subscribe. Oh, we just made it at the end.
Okay, bye. Wait, Slay, wait for me.